Hey all you addicts out there, welcome back to another Addicted Fishing tutorial. My name is Jordan Carnegie with Addicted Fishing. If you guys are new to this channel, our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire anglers like you from all walks of life, all over the world, to go out and catch more fish and have more fun doing it. What we're doing today is a little educational piece, and it's a big one that we've heard a lot about and nobody ever talks about, and it's how to fish power bait mouse tails. So if you guys want to learn the right setups to do this and how to go catch more fish, you stay tuned, it's coming at you right now. So what these mouse tails are, they're basically a little rubber power egg with a tail coming off the end. It looks just like a mouse tail, honestly. All they are is like a little worm setup. These are soft, they're plastic, they have a little bit of scent to them, and they float really well. That's kind of the key here. So the two different methods I'm going to show you of doing this today are one under a sliding float and then two underneath a water bobber with a jig head so that you can actually reel in and move this setup around. The slide float, in my opinion, works really well because you can set it to a different depth. You can have that thing sitting down there. If there's any kind of current, there's some action to it, and if not, you can get it down to whatever depth those fish are going to be at, and you're going to be able to stay in front of them and allow them to come and find your bait and bite it. What I have here is a 2 to 6 pound. Both of these are 2 to 6 pound ultralight rods. These are in a spinning model. These are Okuma Guide Selects. Anything works, but I like that 2 to 6 pound line rating. What that does is it gives you enough flexibility to make a long cast with a really light setup, but it also allows it to be a lot of fun to fight these fish. So on this I have a 30 series reel. This is an Okuma reel RTX. I have a 10 pound braid, which is really nice to cast as well, down to about a 10 pound fluorocarbon bumper, and then a bobber stop on that bumper for my sliding weight. So this is going to slide up and down my line. My bobber stop will stop on that bead right there, and then it will stop my bobber at whatever depth I want. So I can take this stop and I can move it down my line, or I can move it then again up my line to set it at whatever depth I think those fish are going to be feeding at. All the way down to, again, that bead and down to a 3/8 ounce float. You can use any size of float. If you're using a very small amount of weight, you can use even a smaller weight or a float than this, but this is nice because you can see it out there in the lake. It's got a nice orange top to it and it allows you to see when that thing's bouncing up and down. I have a 1/4 ounce weight that slides right on my line. It's just an inline weight. Again, all this stuff you can find at Walmart or any of the retailers around that have fishing gear. 1/4 ounce weight down to a number 4 barrel swivel. Off of that barrel swivel, I have about a 6 pound fluorocarbon leader, and I keep saying fluorocarbon. I like fluorocarbon a lot for this adaptation or any kind of fishing anymore because it's a very clear line and it blends into whatever color water that you're actually fishing. What I'm going to do here on this one, I'm going to take my number 4, this is a size 2 Mustad bait beak hook, and what this is it has these little spurs on the back and a bent down shank so that you can put whatever bait, power worm, anything on there, and it's not going to slide off when you go to cast it out there. So I got my 6 pound test down to my number 2 hook. I'm going to tie just a normal fisherman's knot on there. I don't have to do anything fancy. I'm going to go 6 wraps, maybe 7 because 7 sounds lucky today. I'm going to put it back through the eye of that loop and the line that I've made, and I'm going to secure that hook right to the end of my line there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get into my mouse tails here. I'm going to open these bad boys up. These are neat too because they do come a little scented, but you can add any scent to this. If you have some Pro-Cure scent or any kind of trout scent that you can spray in this bag, any kind of oil that will add a little shrimp scent or maybe some nightcrawler scent or anything you want to these rubber eggs, those will suck it up really well and allow you to have a little bit different style of fishing, a little bit different scent out there in the lake. So what I'm going to do now, I have my little mouse tail here. I'm going to take this hook and I'm going to slide it right through the middle of that ball, and I'm actually going to try to catch a little bit of that worm there. And what I mean by that is I'm going to try to slide that hook shank down into that worm just a little bit. That way we have it holding on to the whole thing. If we do get a nice aggressive fish grab it, it's not going to fall off. Then I'm going to slide that white ball up and over the part of my hook there, just like so, making sure it's a nice straight line. And then we're all set to go. Just like that. That's what it's supposed to look like. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my depth. I'm going to set this, if it's about 12 feet deep out here, I'm going to set it about 8 so this leader, these float again really well. So I'm going to cast that out there. I'm going to let it set up off the bottom. I'm going to get this one fishing, and I'm going to show you guys the second setup that I like to use. So we'll come around here and I grab my line here. See that little guy wiggling? The beauty of this is that wiggling tail. It gives it a little bit of action. It moves around. Whether or not your bobber's moving in the lake, there's any kind of wind chop or anything like this. I like this presentation on a windy day because it moves around and it's constantly getting your stuff moving and flashing in front of those fish, kind of enticing them to bite, hopefully. cast that right to where I can see. I'm gonna let that slide down, and if I need to adjust my bobber stop more, if I need to be shallower because my bobber never goes straight up and down like it just did, I'm gonna have to slide my bobber stop down towards my bobber to adjust that depth so that I'm sitting up off the bottom. Right now I'm sitting perfect. I'm up off the bottom, my bobber's sitting straight up and down. I'm gonna set my rod down here, and hopefully we get a bite in the background while we're showing you the second setup. So the second setup is gonna be one that allows you to add some action to this presentation. Why I'm gonna do this, why I'm gonna use a water bobber and stuff on this one, is so that I can move this presentation around, let it fall and sink and rise and fall, and that's gonna attract those fish. They're gonna be able to see that, and it's gonna cause them to swim over and bite. So what I'm gonna do on this one is I have my water bobber here. And this water bobber, this little stem slides in and out. You pull that back out, you set it down in the water and let it fill up with water just like I have here, about halfway is full. And then you're gonna slide it up your line. I have my same 2 to 6 pound rod, 10 pound test, 10 pound braided, 10 pound fluorocarbon bumper. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take this little stick that I stick in here, either a toothpick or I actually just took the stick off the bank. I'm gonna slide my line through the guide, through the middle hole of that bobber, and I'm gonna slide this up about 4 to 5 feet just to create some distance in between my little mouse tail and my bobber that's gonna be causing some disturbance on the surface. And then I'm gonna stick that stick or my toothpick right in the top there. And what that does is that allows that to sit there and not move. You're gonna be able to move that up and down your line given how much deeper you want that. If you want it to sink to the bottom or whatever, you're gonna add some depth or you're gonna take it away. That water bobber will sit halfway up there. And the reason these water bobbers are so effective is because you can add weight to your presentation. This is obviously very light, and then still cast it clear out there across the lake. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take just a little jig head here, and this is out of a Trout magnet box, and I'm gonna go with a silver one today, but just this little, I think this is 1/32 ounce jig head. And this works really nicely because you can just tie it right to that line. I have that 10 pound fluorocarbon once again. This is all kind of an inline presentation. I'm gonna tie that on there with a normal fisherman's knot again, about 6-7 wraps. Just like so. And then I'm gonna take this power worm again. I'm gonna try these other ones this time, these mouse tails. Open that bad boy up, and I'm gonna add it to this jig head, and this is gonna be going on there a little bit differently for you. And again, while we're doing this, I'm gonna show you in just a second is how we're gonna present this mouse tail out there this time. That makes it a little more fishy, and it makes it a cool little presentation to try to attract those fish. So I'm gonna slide it again right through the ball there, just around the shank, pull that bad boy through, and put that ball right up there by that jig head. And now we're fishing, just like that, which is perfect. So what I'm gonna do with this water bobber is I'm gonna cast it as far as I can out into the lake, and I'm actually gonna create an action, more of like a pull that's gonna rise and fall back behind this water bobber as I bring it back in towards me. So with this long presentation, with that 4 or 5 foot leader, you're gonna wanna have some back casting room. Make a nice delicate cast so that you don't whip it too hard, and slide that bobber down to your actual mouse tail that you have on here. You wanna be able to keep them both where they're supposed to be. So nice delicate cast. That's still gonna go a long ways. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let that thing sink for 3 or 4 seconds. I'm gonna reel, and I'm gonna do a slow lift, and then I'm gonna let it fall. And I'm gonna count to 3 again. 3, 4, however much you want. Let that jig fall back to the bottom. You're gonna reel up slowly, lift, stop, and then let it fall. And each time I'm lifting up about as long as my rod is, which is about 7 feet long. So I'm gonna take that again, I'm gonna lift it, and then I'm gonna let it fall. And by doing that, what that's doing is bringing that tail, that mouse tail to the surface, and then letting it fall back down. And as it falls, it's giving that wiggling action, it's giving that dying motion that those fish are gonna be looking for when they're swimming around, being a predator in the lake, trying to find some food. So I'm gonna lift, and I'm gonna let it fall, just like so. And if you can see your line back behind your bobber, you'll be able to see when that finally straightens out and that jig gets as far down behind that bobber as you possibly can be, and then that's when you want to lift and pull it again. So now that I've made it back in, and cast this bad boy out there again, as far as I can. You see, with just that little bit of water in that bobber, it allows you to cast a long ways, especially with that 10-pound braid on the end of your line here. Okay, now we're gonna do this little lift, and we're gonna let it fall. And again, each time I'm lifting and pulling, I'm not pulling much more back towards me than the leader is behind my bobber. So I'm pulling about 6 feet, 4 to 6 feet, and then I'm letting it fall back down. Just like so. So all that being said, mouse tails are definitely a presentation that should not be overlooked. especially in these areas where you have a lot of stock trout, that there's a lot of people fishing and a lot of pressure. You give them a little bit something different to look at, a little bit different presentation, and a little different style of using like this water bobber and or your slide float, where you can really kind of counteract and get into where those fish are going to be. It's going to make you a more successful trout fisherman. So if you guys have learned anything here today, be sure to go to the links below, click that Addicted Fishing channel, and go check out some more of the trout tutorials that we have for all different walks. We have different power bait, different worms, different styles, different times of year. So go there, check that stuff out, become a better trout fisherman, and go out and have fun. If you guys haven't already, hit that little subscribe button, tap that little bell notification, and give this video a thumbs up. And if you really liked it, leave a little comment below with whether or not you've ever caught anything on these mouse tails before. I know they're one of my favorite to use, and they work really well when nothing else in my bag is. So you guys stay fishy, stay out there fishing, and we'll see you out there on the lake.